Welcome to the Seven Figure Builder Show. My name is Julie Baranek, founder of Seven Figure Builder, where we help high achieving CEOs free up time with gorgeous analytics to know exactly what's working and not working in their business to scale to seven figures and beyond. And today I'm here with my friend, Dr. LJ Johnson. Hey, LJ, how
Hey,
are
hey,
you?
I'm good. How are you? I'm
I,
excited.
I am fabulous, thank you. And I am thrilled to have you on today. So, for anyone that hasn't had the pleasure to meet you yet, can you tell us just a little bit about what you do with your business?
Yeah, so I am the holistic endo expert. I specialize in everything women's health, specifically when it comes to all the not so sexy stuff. So, infertility, endometriosis, PCOS, fibroids, hormonal imbalances. If you're listening to this podcast and you're a female, you know all about those hormonal imbalances. So, I kind of take all the unsexy stuff, put a bunch of tools in your toolbox, and then put you into your sexy so that you can show up and show out in life.
I love that. I love that. So lots of women out there know they struggle with this issue. For those that don't know that they struggle, but think maybe I've heard of this, how do people know if this is something that they might be struggling with?
Right. Let's just think head to toe, right? If you got a uterus, if you have a womb, there's typically going to be some imbalances. But let's talk about our 6 and 7 figure earners, right? There are things that you need to do. You've got to show up in your business, you're hiring, you're firing, you're scaling, you're presenting, you're doing summits, all the good things. But let's talk about when the hormones are not balanced. Let's talk about that brain fog when you're doing those presentations and you're like, who am I? What am I? What am I talking about? Or the imposter syndrome that hits you 10 minutes before and you're like, am I even qualified to talk about this? Like, so all of those things, right? So we're talking about brain fog, memory issues. You can have flaring up of the skin and not just the cute acne. We're talking about that acne that the pimple patch and Curology doesn't help. The acne where you're like, I got to get to the dermatologist. I got to be camera ready in 4 days and I got something going on with my skin. You can have rashes, itching, eczema. Sometimes you can have painful periods, painful menstruation, not necessarily all the time. You can have a hormonal imbalance and, your period health be perfectly fine. You could have, lots of bloating, digestive issues. Sometimes also just that feeling of where you're like, I just don't feel right. You're like, I'm looking at the person in the mirror. She's saying and doing things that I don't really know why she's doing these things. I don't know where this is coming from. So it brings in a lot of mental health stuff as well. And just that overall feeling of malice where you're like, something is not right. I'm not quite sure what it is. I've talked to my doctor. He said my blood work is fine, but I feel anything but fine. Those are just a couple of the high notes when it comes to hormonal imbalances.
Absolutely. And, I may be hearing this and think that's me. What do I do about it? Like I've struggled with this my whole life. I just deal with it, right? Is there something I can do?
Right. There's lots of somethings right now. We could be here 5 hours talking about all the some things you can do, right? So one thing I will say is optimizing your cycle. If you have a cycle, let's be honest, there are times that we're just like, oh gosh, here comes my period. I'm not going to be able to show up. Or, oh, here comes the pain. I won't be able to take care of the family, the kids, or show up in my business. And so the biggest thing I tell people is rather than fighting with our cycle, fighting against our hormones, always being at war with our body, this pushing and pulling, to kind of sit back and be like, hey, I am now going to turn my cycle into my superpower. And so we are going to attach a freebie where you can grab that freebie and it talks to you about how to cycle sync, how to optimize your cycle. And so for business owners, that is knowing like, hey, when my cycle starts, that's probably the time that I'm going to be more of an introvert. I'm going to sit back in my business and look and see what systems are working, what's not working. Is it time to hire, fire? We talked a little bit about that before we hopped on this morning. So, you have to kind of look at your business. And then there's going to be those times where your estrogen and your progesterone, they are showing up and showing out. And you're like, this is the time, right? This is when you want to do all that content management. You want to do those 15 TikToks and reels and all that pointing and dancing and all that fun stuff. You're feeling more outgoing. And so a lot of the times we beat ourselves up when we don't want to be outgoing, or we're just more like we want to chill. We don't want to do all of these things. We're just like, oh, I'm a bad person. And this is the thing. You're not a bad person. What it is you're not optimizing your cycle. You're fighting against your cycle rather than turning it into your superpower. So that is one thing you can do. The other thing you can do is as we're showing up in our business, when we think about hormonal imbalances, we're always like, what's another supplement, a juice, a detox, a cleanse? Let's keep it basic. Many of you are listening to this right now. Maybe it's in the evening. You've packed a lunch for your kids, dinner, all this. You were on Pinterest finding the perfect snacks and all of this. It's 6 o'clock at night. You've probably had 2 ounces of water, 5 cups of coffee, and haven't ate all day, right? So those types of things mess with your blood sugar. Those don't allow you to show up and show out and be your best self. So being able to bring in those whole processed, whole foods, cutting back on the processed foods, optimizing your cycle. And then the biggest thing when it comes to, hormonal imbalances and when you're running a business is being able to manage stress, right? And stress shows up in so many different ways. A lot of the times we think of stress as a external, right? Like having an employee issue or not meeting our goals or having to get our taxes ready, the stuff we don't enjoy doing. But sometimes there can be that internal stressor, right? Of that imposter syndrome, depression, anxiety, and all of the other things that come with running a business. So those would be a few of the tips I would give just to get someone started.
I love that. And I'll speak for myself as a woman, but we go through our whole lives and we don't, we feel powerless so often, right? Like
Right.
this just happens to you every month and you just get through it every single month.
Mm-hmm.
And, I don't know that I've ever heard anybody talk about optimizing their cycle. So I find that very intriguing. And I plan to get your free download, which we will have down below. But to be able to take that and really empower yourself and not be so hard on yourself and be able to really sync up at what times are most productive, what times of the month are most productive. Like usually, and again, I'll speak for myself, but you just feel these slumps and you don't have any idea why or, how you can actually do something and, you feel so powerless. So I think that's really incredible.
Absolutely. And I've been there too. I mean, not only just dealing with hormonal imbalances, but managing chronic illnesses. And so for me personally, it took 16 years to be properly diagnosed with endometriosis. So I had all these ups and downs of hormones, the life, getting married, pregnant, getting divorced, all of these things, and this chronic illness running rampant throughout my entire body, which I had no idea what was going on with. So many of you as well, right? You're having the hormonal imbalances, you're dealing with that, but you're also managing these chronic illnesses. And so it's really about having a toolbox that's going to allow you to show up and show out, which is my thing, right? But then also being able to know when to sit back and to rest, right? And not always being in that fight or flight.
Mm-hmm. Totally. So when we think about the triggers of what could be telling us that we're having these issues, would infertility be one of those key points that could indicate a hormonal imbalance?
Absolutely. And the biggest thing, I was just speaking at a conference and we were speaking of infertility. And the hugest thing is that when you go to your doctor and you're having fertility challenges or you have a diagnosis, we get this thing in our mind of where we're like, we have to hurry up and get pregnant before something goes wrong. We got to hurry up and do this before the hysterectomy. And what we really need to do is I know that we want to be a parent and I know that that is a burning desire, but we have to kind of take a step backwards and make sure that our hormones are balanced. Because this is the thing, when you're in pregnancy, baby is shopping for mom stores. And I think that is something that a lot of people don't think of, right? We see the YouTube videos or, our TikTok where the person's like, I got pregnant, all my teeth fell out, this, that, and the other. This is why, right? And it's kind of funny, but then on the other hand, it's like, this is why, because you started the fertility journey and you were nutrient deficient, right? You were dealing with a toxic overload. And so a lot of times when there is infertility, we want the quick fix, right? We want to do IVF. And I think all of those things are amazing, but we have to kind of circle back, look at our detox pathways, make sure we're actually hyper-nourishing our body and that our hormones are balanced. And especially when you're dealing with, miscarriages and different things like that, especially multiple miscarriages or having trouble conceiving, there's usually a huge connection with your hormones. But the other big thing that I think we forget about is toxins, right? All the toxins that we're taking into our body, may it be through pharmaceuticals, makeups, cleaning products, whatever, and then not having a way to really push those toxins out.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll be fully transparent as well, but I had fertility issues between my first and my second. And excuse me, I had fertility issues between my first and my second. And I just took a break and said, let me focus on myself to that point to get myself to a healthier place, lost a ton of weight and then became pregnant. So, where focusing on yourself can actually bring about those things that you're looking for and have an impact on both your health and get to those goals.
Right. You're right? Your health and your wealth. But it's interesting. Like I said, we want to wear the cape and we show up for everyone. But then when we have to show up for ourselves, we feel bad or we're like, oh, this 2 hours I'm spending on myself and self-care, I could be doing this, that, and the other for my business. But it's like, here's the thing. How are you going to pour from an empty cup, right? How are you going to move to that next level in your business and your fertility journey if you weren't able to nourish your body and then show up?
Yeah, for sure. So speaking of nourishment, you mentioned about blood sugars. So we see all these things online of like,
Yes.
starving yourself and eating protein and don't eat this and all this. Like, what do you recommend? What is the truth out there?
So when it comes to blood sugar, I like to go back to hypernourishing your body. Everyone's body is different. Now, let's just talk about zero diagnoses. You're just like, hey, LJ, you just called me out. It's 7:00 at night, 6:00. I haven't had any food. Here's the thing. Your body requires food and water, period, point blank. If you're fasting, whatever you have going on, you need to make sure that you're getting in all your nutrients. And I think what happens is, as an entrepreneur, we get up with these to-do lists, right? We've got to show up and do this. We've got to do that. We've got to be present here. And so we put our nutrition and our health on the back burner until we have a diagnosis, right? Then your doctor's like, hey, you're insulin resistant. You got PCOS. Oh, your thyroid's not working. And then we're like, oh, that's weird, So it's like thinking about it and being proactive, making sure you're getting in whole foods, right? Now, I know sometimes we got to bring in the processed foods because we're on the go, but the more whole foods you can bring in is the best, right? Also, for females, we have to leave this scarcity mindset of we don't eat fat because we don't want to be fat, right? And maybe I'm just calling myself out because I was there as, traveling the world, telling everyone like we're going to eat fat-free saltines. And I always laugh when I say that because even if you look at regular saltines, I'm not saying that's going to help you. There's no fat in saltines. So why we felt the need to eat fat-free saltines, I will never know, right? But it was that scarcity mindset of I want to be lean and mean and showing up. But it's like, get off the processed foods, bring in the whole foods, and bring in the healthy fats. The fats are not going to be the reason that you gain the belly fat, that you gain the weight. It's going to be the processed foods, the sugars, and you'll also be a lot more productive if your blood sugar is balanced. It's okay to maybe not have a super early breakfast. Maybe you have that caffeine because you're like, I need that go-go juice, but you need to be bringing in those carbs, the fat, and the proteins, and having that great balance to keep your sustainable blood sugar. Now, I will piggyback on that a little bit because I know as entrepreneurs, we spend a lot of time sitting down. Maybe you had a standing desk, maybe you have a treadmill desk, but here's the thing. If you're struggling with your weight, if your blood sugar is always on a roller coaster, the weight is not going to come off. So I don't know who that's for, but I'm going to say it again. Coming from that scarcity mindset of restricting your calories, not eating, fasting and all of those things, I think those can be very healing. But overall, balancing your blood sugar will make you a lot more productive.
For sure. And as we're going through the day, we may be fine all day and then get to the evening and we've completely run out of willpower and just find ourselves stress eating. Like, what do you recommend for that?
So it goes back to the blood sugar. If you're hypernourishing your body and bringing those nutrients in, when you get to the end of the day at 7:00, you won't be binge eating. And that's typically what happens when we are doing the scarcity of, the old mindset of, 6 meals a day to rev up your metabolism. That was all fine and great, right? Until it stopped working for me. And I'm like, I can't keep traveling the world telling people to eat chicken and broccoli because it's maybe helping with weight loss, but it definitely wasn't balancing my hormones, right? I had horribly painful periods. I was passing out during my cycle, hot flashes, all the things. So that myth we had to put on the table. So what you really have to do is bring the nutrients in and stay consistent with it. I think it's a huge consistency issue that usually kind of throws us off and just kind of pushes us in the wrong direction.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And back to the self-care and not letting yourself get stressed out constantly throughout the day. And I said that willpower, and I'll speak for myself. You get to the evening.
I mean, it's stressful. And even for myself, I'll be 100% honest. Yesterday, I was going. I typically don't work till 7:30 or 8, but it was one of those nights where I had some patients that needed some things. And then I had a seminar I was teaching. So throughout the day, I had to kind of force myself to make sure I got in my, detox smoothie and this, that, and the other, because if not, it would have been 8:00 at night, which there's nothing wrong with that. But on a consistent basis, if I don't get those things in, then my energy is going to start reflecting that, right? The blood sugar is going to become unstable. And especially if you're dealing with like the hot flashes and all these other hormonal issues, the blood sugar is super important.
Mm-hmm. And how would you say exercise plays into all of that? Like, what is the best exercise that you can do?
The best exercise, here's the thing, the one that you'll do. Period. Point
the
blank,
one you're consistent,
right? Because if I said right now, like I'm going to hop off here and I'm going to cycle for a few minutes and then I'm going to teach another class. Here's the thing. If you don't enjoy it, you won't stay consistent. Start small. This is the biggest thing. And maybe I'm going to call myself out. I can't be the only one in their 40s. I am 43 years old and I'll keep it 100. I've been a certified personal trainer, group fitness instructor since the age of 17. I know fitness, but here's the thing. I have to be consistent. I also have to realize that those tuck jumps and those high knees and all that fun stuff I did in my 20s, baby, that's not going to work for me right now. Period. Right? There's nothing wrong with my body, nothing wrong with my knees, but all that high impact and all the stuff I was doing, it doesn't work for me now. So I don't set myself up for, failure saying, oh, today I'm going to do, 2 P90X videos. I'm not. period. I'm not going to do it. Number one, it's over exercising my body, probably will just leave me inflamed, leave me in pain, and then I won't be consistent. So the best exercise is something that you will be consistent with. Put away all of the misconceptions, beating yourself up of, when I used to go to the gym, I'd run 10 miles. Why would you go try to run 10 miles yesterday or tomorrow or any day when you haven't been even walking for 20 minutes? So find something small and then habit stack. Once again, I think sometimes we take that super aggressive mindset that we use in our business and we try to apply it to everything. And sometimes it just kind of works against us.
Yeah. And then it's just setting yourself up for failure, which nobody
Right.
wants. So looking over your career and also your health journey, right? Sounds like they've been obviously running in parallel, but
Yes.
how do you define success? What does that look like to you?
Success is where I'm at right now. I remember when I couldn't show up, when I was stuck on Mattress Island. I remember when I had to close my private practice because I got a diagnosis and I was like, what the heck am I going to do now? I remember not being able to show up as a single parent and take my kids to the park. I remember having to call a neighbor, right? The same neighbor that seen me on TV 2 days ago, giving 5 tips to stay healthy. That was the same neighbor I had to call and be very humble and be like, hey, I'm in pain. I'm in a flare. Can you come get my kids ready for school? So remembering all of that and being able to wake up today and have the habits that I have, the health that I have. I love that you said, yes, my career and my health and healing journey it's all one, right? I would not be where I am in my business if I didn't get my health where it needed to be, until I healed myself naturally. And then I get to walk in my purpose and my passion. Like, this is what I love to do. And for me, this is success.
I absolutely love that. It's so powerful. So for people that are hearing this and they want to work with you, like, how do you help people? How can they find you?
Yes. So ljspowerhouse.org will have all the links. We'll have the freebie. I do free discovery calls. So if you're listening and you're like, maybe she's onto something, maybe you're like, I don't have a hormone issue, I just want to be more productive in my business, definitely click the link. We can do the free discovery call. As of right now, I really only just work on one-on-one patients. I don't do any small group just because I really like to personalize it to get you to where you're going, right? I'm working with high functioning, aspiring people. So I really like to zone in. So I have one-on-one coaching. I've got a couple different packages, and we really just kind of set it up to put you in the driver's seat of your health. We're, habit stacking. We're doing nighttime routines. We're doing some functional testing, because I think a lot of the times, especially as an entrepreneur, we have all these goals and everything for our health or for our business, but we kind of push the health behind. And I would just say that if you're in a spot where your business is not moving forward, you're not seeing the results, you feel like you're doing all the work, or you have this health issue that you're just kind of wanting to put on the back burner, I'm telling you right now, if you get your health where you need to be, it'll better help you show up in your business.
Absolutely. And without your health, you have nothing. So it's so
Absolutely.
important. And so often we don't think about it until it's pushed at the forefront of our every single day. And it's like, okay, I need to listen. I need to do something, but you're so much better off not waiting to have that pushed in front of you and taking care of it yourself. So I love that.
We got to be proactive. We just got to be proactive.
Totally.
Yes.
Totally. So if you had the attention of the whole world for 5 minutes, what would you say to them?
That you're deserving of health. No matter what your diagnosis, no matter what is going on, you are deserving of health. You just have to realize that your health is going to look different than everyone around you.
So powerful. So you mentioned your websites. We'll have them down below, but how can listeners support you in your work?
Yeah, I would love for you to, I have a podcast as well, the Holistic Endo Expert Podcast. Go over there. You can listen up and learn. I spend a lot of time on Instagram. So if you see a post that resonates with you, throw it in your stories, tag and share. It's all about raising awareness, right? I mean, the business, everything will line up if you're just showing up and being present and raising that awareness.
For sure. For sure. So we'll have all the links below, and people should definitely come check you out. And if you found value in this episode, please do share it. That's how people find us. And you can find me at sevenfigurebuilder.com. And thank you, Dr. LJ, for being on today. This was awesome.
Thank you, Julie.
Absolutely.